All right, so we just finished reading the Dwight chapters. We learned all about what makes Dwight so weird. So now we have a normal chapter again, and this is Cassie's story. So, Origami Yoda and Shakespeare's Head. The reason I asked Origami Yoda a question was because I broke Mr. Snyder's Shakespeare head. What? I don't know why Mr. Snyder wanted to have a statue of Shakespeare's head in his classroom to begin with. For one thing, it's ugly. And for another thing, I don't think we've read anything by Shakespeare. If we did, I wasn't paying attention. Another thing I don't understand is how there can be all these stupid, clumsy, loudmouth boys in our class, like Harvey and Kellen, who are always flopping around and throwing stuff and acting like idiots. But none of them ever knocked over the Shakespeare head. And then I come along, and the thing practically falls over on its own when I walk past. But anyway, that's how it is. I was the one who broke it. It fell off the windowsill, hit the floor, and busted open like one of those hollow chocolate Easter bunnies. I think the fact that it was hollow probably means it wasn't a real statue, but I was still scared to death when I broke it. I wasn't sure exactly what the punishment for breaking Shakespeare's head was going to be, but I figured it would be pretty big. Oh, I feel bad for her. All these crazy boys always being wild, and then she's the one who breaks the statue. Ugh. Luckily, I was the only one in the room right then. Mr. Snyder was in the teacher's lounge, and most of the other kids were in the library, where they hang out every day before school. I tried to do that, but if you don't have anybody in particular to hang out with, there's nothing to do. And I don't have anybody in particular. I just started school here in January, and I haven't found anybody I like to hang around with yet. Anyway, Shakespeare's head was in about 6 pieces. I took all the books out of my backpack, then I scooped up Shakespeare's pieces and stuffed them in there. Then there was nothing to do but wait and see what would happen. I sat there through the whole class with Shakespeare's head in my backpack, and nothing happened. Then, just before class was over, Mr. Snyder noticed that Shakespeare's head was missing. Ugh. What happened to Shakespeare? He asked. I just sat there. Did you guys hide him somewhere? He asked. I just sat there. The bell rang. I started to head for the door. Whoa, hold up a second. Sit back down, said Mr. Snyder. It's okay if someone's playing a joke, but I expect to see Shakespeare back here tomorrow. He has sentimental value to me, so make sure he's back tomorrow, all right? I just sat there, and so did everybody else. I was afraid Mr. Snyder was going to look at me, but he was mostly looking at Dwight, who I guess was the most likely suspect since he's weird enough to actually want a Shakespeare head. All right, go on, he said at last, and we all jumped up and left. So far, so good. I was out the door with the Shakespeare pieces in my backpack. Once I got home, I could trash it and I'd be safe. I felt bad for messing up Mr. Snyder's sentimental value or whatever, but what could I do about it? At the end of the day, I got on the bus with Shakespeare still in my backpack. Dwight got on and sat down next to me. He sits with me every day. Or actually, I guess I sit with him. When I started riding the bus in January, the only seat nobody was saving for somebody else was next to him. Usually he's talking about robots or spiders or something. But today he started right away asking about my backpack. To be in the backpack or not to be in the backpack? That is the question, he said in a sort of British accent or something. What? I said. The word backpack made me jump. Did he know? Shakespeare, Shakespeare, where art thou, Shakespeare? The backpack, perchance? He said. Shh, I whispered. How did you know? Elementary, my dear Cassie, he whispered back, but with the same weird accent. When we rode the bus to school this morning, your books were in your backpack. But now I see you are holding your books on your lap. Your backpack is quite full. Therefore, something else must be in the backpack. It's obvious what it is. Are you going to tell Mr. Snyder? No need, he said. I saw him watching you in your enormous backpack when you left class. He's probably testing you to see if you bring it back or not. But I can't bring it back, I whispered. It's broken. Dear me, what a calamity, he said, still in that weird accent, by the way. May I see the victim? I unzipped the backpack a little so he could peek in. By George, it looks like a murder, all right. What did you use, the lead pipe or the candlestick? Dwight's so weird. No, it was just an accident. If it was an accident, why did you sneak the victim out of the room? I didn't want to get in trouble. Ah, but now you're in much more trouble, he said. As the Romans said, Vorpius de leporius octo. The cover-up is worse than the crime. Well, now I was really worried, and I have to admit that I was starting to cry. If I didn't bring it back, Mr. Snyder would think I had stolen it. If I did bring it back, he would know I had broken it and might even think I had done it on purpose. Either way, he would know I tried to get away with it. What should I do? I asked. Maybe you should ask Origami Yoda, said Dwight. I'm serious, I said. Origami Yoda is serious too, said Dwight. Forget it. The bus was still about 10 minutes from my house, and after I sat there for 5 minutes without thinking of anything, I finally asked Yoda. So, before I turn the page, what do you think Yoda is going to tell Cassie to do about the Shakespeare statue? So you get her problem, right? She broke it, and then she put it in her backpack. So he's either going to think she stole it or broke it on purpose. So if you're Yoda, what do you think the advice will be? Try to come up with advice before I turn the page. I have an idea. Let's see if I'm right. All right, I said. What does Yoda think I should do? Dwight put Origami Yoda on his finger and said, New one you must make. What's he talking about? I said. I can't make a new one. He said, You must. But I can't. You must. But must! Shouted Yoda. I was glad when my stop came. By the time I walked up our driveway, I was thinking that Dwight was crazy and Origami Yoda was crazy, but that they were probably right. I knew I couldn't make a new one that would fool Mr. Snyder. But maybe I could make one good enough to replace the broken one so that he would know I didn't kill Shakespeare on purpose. And that's exactly what happened. I called Mom at work and asked her to stop by the Dollar Corral and get me about $10 worth of that fake Play-Doh they sell. I told her it was for a school project, which was true. I used the broken parts of the old Shakespeare as a guide, and I did a pretty good job, although the fake Play-Doh was bright blue and red, so Shakespeare ended up being red with a blue wig. When I showed it to Mr. Snyder the next morning, he laughed his head off and wasn't mad. He said that the new Shakespeare would have even more sentimental value than the old one, and it's still sitting there in his classroom, although it's gotten really dry and crumbly and sometimes the nose falls off. But you can stick it back on if you lick it first. Harvey's comment. Was that supposed to be Shakespeare? I thought it was Robert E. Lee's horse. My comment. One of the main theories is that Origami Yoda must be real, because Dwight is too clueless to think of the smart things that Yoda says. But Cassie's story makes me wonder about that, since it shows that Dwight can think on his own without Yoda's help. But the next story suggests the opposite. Not only is Dwight not wise enough to be Origami Yoda, he's not smart enough to listen to Origami Yoda. Of course, this time around, neither was I. So today's Jamboard is this. Do you think Dwight is as dumb as people think he is? Give 2 examples to prove your opinion. We've heard so much about Dwight, and now I can't decide if I think he is like this knucklehead who's not smart, or I actually think he's kind of a genius. I'm not sure. I'm curious what you think. All right, good luck.